Kurt Cobain's final 24 hours. The mystery of lost time. The last confirmed sighting of Kurt Cobain alive was April 2nd, when he scaled the fence at Exodus Recovery Center. For 3 days, he vanished. No phone calls, no credit card transactions, no witnesses. Until Gary Smith's discovery on April 8th revealed Kurt had been gone for days. But medical examiners determined the time of passing occurred around April 5th. What happened in those missing 72 hours? Where did Kurt go after leaving Los Angeles? And why does the timeline of his final day contain so many unexplained gaps? The answers lie in airport surveillance footage, a cab driver's testimony, and a receipt that was never supposed to be found. If you want to learn all the secrets of these lost hours, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because the real story of Kurt Cobain's final day will change everything you've known for 30 years. April 2nd, escape and disappearance. The flight from Los Angeles Airport to Seattle departed at 3:47 p.m. on April 2nd. Kurt Cobain's name was on the passenger list, but nobody on the plane recognized him. With a hat, sunglasses, and hooded sweatshirt, he looked completely different. Flight attendant Linda Chen would say in a statement years later, "I remember the passenger in seat 20A. He was very quiet, looking out the window. But I didn't know it was Kurt Cobain at the time." Arrival time at Seattle-Tacoma Airport, 6:23 p.m. Airport security cameras showed a hooded figure passing through the baggage claim area and heading straight for the exit. He didn't collect luggage because he had no luggage, just a small backpack and his guitar. But here's where the first mysterious detail emerges. How did Kurt leave the airport? There's no taxi record under his name. Uber wasn't active in Seattle yet, and nobody came to pick him up because no one knew where he was. Courtney Love, Danny Goldberg, even his closest friends. Nobody knew Kurt had returned to Seattle. Security camera footage that surfaced in 2015 showed Kurt walking toward the airport parking lot. But he hadn't parked his car there. So what was he doing? The answer was found in airport employee Michael Torres's statement. "A man approached me and asked if there was a vehicle going to Seattle. I directed him to the shared shuttle bus. That bus took Kurt to downtown Seattle. Arrival time, 7:45 p.m. And then he disappeared again." April 3rd, the invisible day. April 3rd is one of the most mysterious days in Kurt Cobain's life. Almost no records exist. But almost is a very important word, because there is one record, and this record changes everything. Stan's Gun Shop, owned by Stan Baker, was a small firearms store in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. At 2:15 p.m. on April 3rd, the door opened and a hooded customer walked in. Shop owner David Wilson never forgot that day. The man went straight to the shotgun shells section. He wanted 20-gauge shotgun shells. I did an ID check but couldn't recognize the name because glasses and a hat covered his face. There's a sales record. $8.78, cash payment, 2:27 p.m. But what's really important is why those shells were 20-gauge. The Remington M11 shotgun found in Kurt's home was 20-gauge. This couldn't be coincidence. But here's another mystery. Why did Kurt have to buy these shells himself? According to Washington state laws, a shotgun owner can already purchase ammunition. But Kurt didn't seem to have planned this in advance. It was as if he'd made a sudden decision that day. After leaving Stan's gun shop, Kurt disappeared again. From 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. A full 8 hours. Where was he? Who was he talking to? And why didn't any witnesses see him? The answer was found in gas station security camera footage. At 8:47 p.m. on April 3rd, at a Shell station in Capitol Hill, Kurt Cobain was seen standing by a gas pump. But he had no car. He was just standing there, looking for something like a phone booth. In 1994, cell phones weren't widespread yet, and Kurt didn't have one with him. Gas station employee Robert Kim said in his 2014 statement to police, "I remember that night because the man was acting very strange. He went into the phone booth, came out, then went in again. Like he was afraid to talk to someone." But phone records showed no calls. Who would Kurt call? And why did he give up? April 4th. The Midnight Journey. Seattle taxi company Yellow Cab's records show an interesting ride at 11:47 p.m. on April 4th. Starting point, Capitol Hill, Pine Street. Ending point, 171 Lake Washington Boulevard East. Kurt Cobain's home. Driver, James Robinson. Fare, $23.50. Paid in cash. Robinson described that night in detail in a 2012 interview. "I picked up the customer on Pine Street. Hooded sweatshirt, ripped jeans, dirty Converse shoes, very quiet. He sat in the back and gave me the address. He didn't say a single word during the entire ride." But Robinson's statement contains another striking detail. "As we approached the house, the customer told me to stop, not in front of the house, but a block away. 'Drop me here,' he said. I found it strange, but he paid and left. He walked toward the house, but I lost sight of him before I turned around." Why didn't Kurt get out in front of the house? Who was he hiding from? Could someone see him on the way to the house? The house was dark that night. Courtney and Francis Bean were in Los Angeles. Housekeeper Callie DeWitt was on leave. Kurt was completely alone. Or so we thought. Neighbor Margaret Wallace shared a detail in her police statement that never made it to public. "On the night of April the 4th, sometime after midnight, I saw lights at the Cobain house. Both the main house and the room above the garage had lights on. This was strange because I knew the family wasn't home." Wallace's statement never made it into the official report. Why? Because when detectives went to interview her, Wallace had changed her initial statement. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. Maybe it was another night. But her first statement remained in the records, and the date was clear. April 4th, April 5th morning, the final hours. In April in Seattle, daylight begins around 6:30 a.m. On the morning of April 5th, Lake Washington Boulevard was quiet. Birds were singing, light rain was falling, a typical Seattle spring morning. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is the time window forensic experts estimate Kurt Cobain's life ended. But what happened in this 2-hour window? Neighbor David Chen noticed something odd while walking his dog that morning. It was around 8:30 a.m. As I passed by the Cobain house, I heard a strange sound from the garage, like someone was moving things around. But it was very brief. Then silence again. Chen had told police this detail, but it only appeared as one sentence in the report. Neighbor stated he heard sounds from garage at 8:30 a.m. What could the sound have been? Was Kurt making preparations? Or was something else happening? 10 a.m. Another neighbor, Linda Martinez, said she heard a loud sound while working in her garden. A sound like an explosion. But construction sounds are normal in Seattle, so I didn't think much of it. Martinez's house was 200 meters from Kurt's home. Could the sound have come from there? These statements were never leaked to media. Seattle police only said in press releases. The incident occurred on April 5th, but a specific time was never stated. Why? The scene in the garage. Kurt Cobain's body was found in a small room above the garage, separate from the main house structure. This room actually resembled a greenhouse, glass walls, plants, old furniture. Kurt used this as his thinking space. When electrician Gary Smith came to the house on the morning of April 8th for routine security system checks, he noticed the garage door was locked. When he looked through the windows of the room above, the scene he saw changed his life. Smith's first statement to police read, "When I looked through the window, I saw someone lying on the floor. At first I thought he was sleeping, but then when I looked closer, I saw blood. I immediately called police." Details at the scene have been debated for 30 years, but some details in police reports were never disclosed to the public. For example, 3 different pieces of paper found in the room. Everyone talks about the goodbye note, but there were actually 3 separate writings. The first note was the long letter to Boddah that everyone knows. The second note was much shorter, just 2 lines. "I'm sorry for Francis. For Courtney, too." The third note was just 1 word, written in capital letters, "Finally." This third note was never photographed, never given to press. It only appeared as 1 line in the police report. Why? Because this note raised more questions instead of answering them. What did finally mean? Finally, what ended? Timeline inconsistencies. The forensic report said Kurt passed on April 5th, but the body was found approximately 3 days later. Based on decomposition degree calculations, time was determined between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. on April 5th, but some details didn't match this timeline. For example, substance levels in Kurt's blood. Toxicology report detected very high amounts, approximately 1.52 milligrams per liter. This level is lethal for most people. A detail in toxicologist Dr. Robert Hamilton's report was striking. With this level of concentration, it's nearly impossible for the subject to act consciously. Loss of consciousness is expected within 5 to 10 minutes after injection. What did this mean? If Kurt had used such a high dose before his final action, it would have been very difficult for him to physically do anything afterward. But the scene appeared carefully arranged. The shotgun was positioned at a specific angle. The notebook was carefully opened. The pen was beside it. These details have been the main points conspiracy theorists have debated for 30 years. But without entering that debate, let's just look at medical facts. With this level, how long could Kurt have remained conscious? Unanswered phone calls. One of the biggest mysteries about Kurt's final day is the lack of communication. No phone calls, no messages, no human contact, or so it appears. But Pacific Bell, the phone company at the time, records tell a different story. At 11:58 p.m. on the night of April 4th, a phone call was made from the Cobain house on Lake Washington Boulevard. Number called, a hotel in Los Angeles. Call duration, 0 seconds, meaning the phone was picked up but not answered. This detail remained secret until 2019. A journalist found traces of this call in phone records obtained through court order. But nobody could explain who made this call. Courtney Love was staying at the Peninsula Hotel in Los Angeles that night. Hotel records showed a call came to the room at 11:58 p.m. But it wasn't answered because Courtney wasn't in her hotel room. She was at the bar at that time. Had Kurt tried to call her? Or had someone else used that phone? April 5th afternoon. Silence. After 1 p.m., Lake Washington Boulevard was completely silent. No vehicles came, no visitors arrived. The house appeared completely abandoned from outside. But in the room above the garage, the final lines Kurt Cobain wrote remained. That famous note, always described in press as "Farewell to Boddah." But some parts of the note were never fully published. At the end of the note, the ink color changed. The first pages were written with blue pen, but the final lines seemed added with black pen. This detail caught graphology experts' attention. Dr. Michelle Dreyer stated in her 2005 analysis, "The handwriting changes in the final lines. More shaky, written more hastily, as if there was time pressure." Time pressure? Why was Kurt in a hurry? Who was he afraid of? Discovery, April 8th. When Gary Smith arrived at the house at 8:40 a.m. on April 8th, he said everything appeared normal. The yard was tidy, the mailbox wasn't full, the garage door was closed. He might have thought the homeowners were on vacation. But when he went to the side of the garage to check the security system, he saw inside through the glass of the room above. At first glance, he didn't notice anything. On his second look, he saw a figure lying on the floor. And on his third look, he faced the shock of his life. Smith's 911 call was at 8:47. The audio recording still sits in Seattle Police Department archives. 911, what's your emergency? I think I found a body. Can you tell me where you are? Lake Washington Boulevard, number 171. Please come right away. The first police unit arrived at the scene at 8:54. Detectives arrived at 9:15. The forensic team started work at 9:40. And at 10:30, Seattle Police Department press spokesman began receiving phone calls. The news had spread to the world. Kurt Cobain was gone. Inconsistencies in initial reports. Seattle Police Department's first press release was at 11:45. The statement was very simple. Kurt Cobain was found deceased at his Seattle home. Initial examinations indicate self-harm. But this statement omitted several critical details. For example, crime scene photos. In the first photos taken, the room's arrangement was striking. Everything was very organized, very planned. The shotgun was at a specific angle, the shell was in a specific place, the note was at a specific distance, like a scene had been staged. Crime scene detective Antonio Terry, in an interview after retiring years later, said, "In my 30-year career, I've seen many scenes, and some were very organized, some were chaotic. The Cobain case was one of the most organized scenes I've seen. This is sometimes natural, sometimes not." What was he implying? Terry didn't explain, but his words caused discussions among detectives. Some said, "Everything is clear, no need for debate," while others said, "Some details should be questioned." Secret details from the autopsy report. King County Medical Examiner's autopsy report was completed on April 10th. The report was 23 pages long, and most details were disclosed to public. But 5 pages were never published. These pages were classified under family privacy grounds. In 2014, a group of journalists won court order rights to view these pages. The pages contained a shocking detail. A paraffin test had been conducted on Kurt's hands, and the result was positive, meaning he had used a firearm in the last 24 hours. This wasn't surprising, but a note in the test results was striking. High concentration on left hand, medium concentration on right hand. Kurt was right-handed. Why was there more gunpowder residue on his left hand? When forensic expert Dr. Henry Lee examined this detail, he said, "In shotgun use, the hand that pulls the trigger carries more gunpowder residue. If the right hand pulled the trigger, concentration should be higher on the right hand. The opposite situation raises questions." This question was never officially answered. Seattle police made a statement that tests may not give definitive results and closed the matter. Courtney Love's final conversation. Courtney Love learned of Kurt's passing on the afternoon of April 8th. When Danny Goldberg called her, she was in Los Angeles. Her initial reaction was recorded because she was using the hotel phone and the call was recorded. No, this can't be real," she had screamed. Then she asked something. Where was he found? When Goldberg said, "In the room above the garage," Courtney said in surprise, "But nobody goes there." This statement later caused controversy. If nobody goes there, why had Kurt gone there? And how did Courtney know this detail? Courtney flew to Seattle the next day. She wanted to see the house, but police didn't allow it because the scene was still under investigation. Instead, they showed her the initial photos. Courtney's reaction was odd. "This isn't Kurt's handwriting," she said, pointing to the note. But graphologists confirmed the writing belonged to Kurt. Memorial and aftermath. Kurt Cobain's memorial service was held on April 10th. A small, private ceremony. Only family and very close friends. Courtney, Frances Bean, Wendy Cobain, Krist Novoselic, Dave Grohl, they were all there. But nobody could speak. The silence was too heavy. Courtney tried to make a speech, but could only say a few words. Kurt should be here. He should be here. Then she started crying and couldn't speak. After the memorial, a public vigil was organized at Seattle's Veretta Park. Thousands of fans came. Courtney asked for a recorded audio message she made for the ceremony to be played. In the message, she read Kurt's note but skipped some sections. Which sections she skipped was never revealed. The remaining questions. 30 years later, Kurt Cobain's final 24 hours still remain mysterious. The official report says everything is clear. But details raise questions. Why are there almost no records between April 2nd and 5th? Where was Kurt during those 72 hours? Who came to the house on the night of April 4th? The taxi driver dropped him off, but how did Kurt get inside? Did he have a key? What were the sounds neighbors heard on the morning of April 5th? Was it really Kurt or something else? Who made the phone call? Had Kurt tried to call Courtney? Why was there more gunpowder residue on the left hand? And most importantly, was Kurt alone in his final hours? Conclusion: the importance of lost hours. Kurt Cobain's story is tragic but universal. Pain, loneliness, feeling misunderstood. These are emotions not just celebrities, but everyone can experience. Kurt's final 24 hours show us that sometimes people quietly disappear in their darkest moments. But these lost hours show us something else. How difficult it is to notice people who need urgent help. Kurt had dozens of people around him, family, friends, colleagues. But nobody could stop him in those final days because nobody knew where he was. This story is a warning. Stay in touch with your loved ones. If you need help, don't stay silent. And if you notice someone is missing, don't give up searching. Kurt Cobain's final 24 hours show how dangerous lost time can be. Because in those hours, a life could have been saved.